Hello, everyone. Those who joined in early, we'll wait a couple more minutes before we begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this special webinar on what companies need to know employing Myanmar migrant workers in Thailand. IHRB, the Institute for Human Rights in Business, works on addressing the many connections and conflicts between business activities and human rights. Today, we are partnering with our sister organization, the Myanmar Centre for Responsible Business, MCRB, to deliver this business-focused webinar to learn about key issues facing workers from Myanmar. The purpose of this webinar is primarily intended to provide an update on the situation and guidance to businesses who have Myanmar migrant workers in their supply chain. The focus will be on Myanmar workers employed in Thailand. The main aim is to help businesses to employ workers responsibly, as the income they get and the remittances they send back home are essential for the resilience of people of Myanmar. And employers should not discriminate against Myanmar workers just because it's too complicated to manage the recruitment or employment of workers from Myanmar. This is an ongoing discussion and one which needs to connect and build relationships with partners. Some housekeeping notes. This webinar is in English only, but we can accept questions written in Burmese in the Q&A function. Although we may not have all the answers, we welcome participants' inputs. In the Q&A box, feel free to share any comments, questions, or links that might be of interest or useful for today's discussion. Once again, we can accept questions or comments in Burmese. If any media are present, they are kindly requested to contact individual speakers if they wish to quote them. Right. So, Carmen, can we go to the first slide on Dhaka principles? So among IHRB's many initiatives, the Migrant Workers Program published the Dhaka Principles for Migration with Dignity, which is a set of human rights-based principles intended to enhance respect for the rights of migrant workers from the moment of recruitment, during employment, and through to safe return. This month, we also published a new guidance to now include a number of amendments and additions to help companies address the challenges facing women migrant workers. Next slide, Carmen. So much of our migrant workers program is focused on the payment of recruitment fees and associated costs. The employer pays principle, where no worker pays for a job and the cost of recruitment should be borne by the employer, not the worker. All businesses should have a hiring policy where all recruitment costs are the responsibility of the employer, whether through a recruitment agency or direct hire. Over the years, many businesses have adopted the employer pays principle in their procurement policies or supply code of conduct. And if you can go to the next slide. So, and IHRB recently launched the Responsible Recruitment Register, which lists companies to have a publicly available policy to prevent payment of recruitment fees and other costs by workers. There are about 220 companies from around the world currently on the register whose policies are aligned with the employer pays principle. But of course, practice and implementation comes with its own set of challenges, which is why we organize national roundtables and the Global Forum for open dialogue between business, civil society, and other stakeholders. You can get more details on the Employer Pays website or the links in the chat box provided by my colleague. If you can move to the next slide, Carmen. Thailand is an important sourcing country for many global brands, including members of the Leadership Group for Responsible Recruitment. IHRB leads the Leadership Group, which is a collaboration between 17 global brands, civil society organizations, and UN agencies. The Leadership Group hosts the annual Global Forum for Responsible Recruitment and to use the brand's collective leverage wherever possible to promote ethical standards in global supply chains. In 2019, the Leadership Group and the MCRB held a roundtable in Yangon. This meeting brought civil society, the recruitment industry, and global brands across various sectors for open dialogue to discuss challenges and opportunities for the responsible recruitment of Myanmar migrant workers. Since then, as you all know, along with the pandemic, there have been other developments. Workers from Myanmar face many challenges, which also impact those who employ them. So on our panel today, we have experts with many years of experience working on Myanmar migrant worker issues, as well as the business landscape between Myanmar and Thailand. I'll hand over to our moderator for today's discussion, our esteemed colleague, Vicky Bowman of the Myanmar Centre for Responsible Business. Vicky has been director for the MCRB since 2013. She was also a former diplomat. Over to you, Vicky.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to talk about today is the political and regulatory context around migration of Myanmar people to Thailand. And then I'll be passing over to three extremely experienced Myanmar speakers who will talk from the perspective of inside the country and in Thailand, and also give a wider perspective of the trends and the feedback which they are receiving from Myanmar workers in Thailand. So first of all, just to highlight that livelihoods continues to be the main driver, people coming for jobs. But there is also, additionally, in the last month or so, a very strong drive coming from the fear of conscription by the Tatmadaw, and that is having already a marked impact on the number of people crossing the border, in some cases regularly with passports, but often irregularly as well. So all of these drivers are acting to significantly increase the number of migrant workers, along with a consistently declining economy and a reduction in security throughout the entire country. So what we're seeing is a large number of migrant workers who are vulnerable and who are desperate for jobs in Thailand, which is obviously then a potential driver for overexploitation in the workplace. Next slide, please. There are a number of reports that have been published both by IHRB, which works on food security, and also by UNDP in the last 6 months, which gives some statistics. These all predate the most recent changes around conscription, but give, I think, a pattern of what sectors and what numbers are moving from Myanmar into Thailand and the kind of costs and challenge they face. So here you see a February working paper from IHRB, which is looking inter alia at what kind of jobs people are moving to Thailand to take up. Almost or around half of them are going into manufacturing, and that's across a number of different sectors, predominantly food, but also garments, electronics, construction supplies. And then there's also a very significant number in Thailand working in the construction sector itself, as well as in hospitality. So there's a high chance of finding Myanmar migrant workers in your supply chain, whatever it is that you are sourcing from Thailand. Next slide, please. Then this is another report came out in November from UNDP, which is useful inter alia for being an update on the current legal routes for migration. My colleagues on this webinar have more expertise in this than me, but I think just to highlight that there are 3 legal routes, of which 2 are significant. One is the MOU route, which has been going for years and which perhaps has around 500,000 Myanmar migrant workers recruited under it. And then there is the pink card route, which is how migrant workers regularize themselves, having come across irregularly. But it's probably true to say that even if there are 2 million legal or regular migrants, there are at least 2 million irregular migrants working in Thailand, which is a really significant percentage, both of the Myanmar population now in Thailand, but also of the Thai population itself. There was an estimate I saw recently that from the ILO that migrant workers contributed 6.6% to Thai GDP. And I imagine that that is actually more significant when you take into account the fact that some wealthier Myanmar people have also moved across to invest both in property and in some cases in business in Thailand. Next slide, please. A quick run through of the passport situation. There are lots of different types of passports for Myanmar workers, but those who are coming to work are predominantly on the PJ, the job passport. And passport renewal at the moment within Myanmar is an extremely lengthy and expensive process. There's a 6-month waiting list for appointments. It's complex. And so one of the key messages, I think, from the Myanmar speakers on this is that any ways which minimize the requirement for Myanmar migrant workers to return to Myanmar to renew passports are a positive step that employers can take, because there's the strong risk that people will go back and then get stuck waiting for a passport. The embassy in Bangkok is also issuing passports, but this is a issue which is sensitive for workers in Thailand who either may not be able to renew their passport because they've been politically active, or who may not want to pay the now 2% income tax, which is levied on a fairly flat rate of 150 baht a month for blue-collar workers. So it's not straightforward in terms of workers keeping themselves legal if they have passports, and obviously not if they don't have the right documents. So this is a complexity that employers need to take into account. Next slide, please. Moving on now to the taxation question. So this was the reintroduction of old provisions that allowed Myanmar to tax its overseas workers, which is a provision that they share with the USA and Eritrea. And the rate of taxation is a flat rate of 2%, although it can be then offset if workers have paid domestic tax, in other words, tax to the Thai authorities. The taxation is collected at the embassy and is a requirement if you are trying to, for example, renew a passport. There's also increasingly references now, both in the newspapers today and in reality on the ground, to requirements to pay advance income tax for workers who are seeking passports. There was something in the Global New Light of Myanmar today on this question. So that's something also to bear in mind, that workers may have taken on additional debts to pay that advance income tax before they obtain their passport. Next slide, please. And then there's the question in the next slide of remittances, where remittances, as Gunnar has said, are extremely important, obviously, and the main reason that many people are migrating. And again, another IHRB paper on remittances recently came out, showing trends on this and how in almost all states and regions, remittances are increasing, and 70% of workers in Thailand are sending remittances. And as you can see, they are contributing a very significant amount to household incomes back in Myanmar. Next slide, please. One of the issues which has been raised is whether or not remittances are remitted at the official central bank rate of 2,100 kyat per dollar or the market rate. And the answer is somewhere in between. There is, and has been for the last year and a half or so, a remittance rate which is offered by legal banks and money exchange providers, including these private banks. And currently that's around 3,400 or so. The market rate today is around 3,600. So it's close to the market rate. And that accounts for the fact that many overseas migrants in Thailand. It's 36% of migrants in Thailand, according to IHRB, have been using the private banks, or 41% have been using mobile money providers to send money home. But many are still using Hundi. It would seem that the main reason why banks have been allowed to offer these close to market rates is because the Central Bank of Myanmar is trying to reduce the availability and use of Hundis, partly in order to get itself off the OECD, of the Financial Action Task Force blacklist, which it went on to in October 2022. Next slide, please. And then there's a question as to whether or not the announced requirement on workers to remit 25% of their earnings via the banking system to their families, and I stress here it's to their families, it's not to the regime itself, whether that is a real obligation, and even if it is, how can it be enforced? And this was an announcement back in September, which caused a lot of concern to the employment agencies, because it appeared that they were going to be required to in some way enforce this, which they said wasn't realistic, given they had no control over how migrant workers spent their money. So to date, this seems to be presented in the pre-departure training as a requirement, and workers are required to open or have their family open bank accounts back in Myanmar. But whether or not there's going to be a requirement that they've that they can prove that they've remitted this money is questionable, but it is out there as a possible further hurdle for migrant workers. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to pass over, having done that in exactly 10 minutes, to Hussein Tay, who is an extremely experienced advisor of migrant workers over the years. I think he's been working in the area both as a worker himself, but also as an advisor to the networks that he set up for some 40 years. Hussein Tay, over to you.
Thank you, Vicky. Hello, everyone. Next slide, please. So our underground is a membership-based organization. It is founded by Myanmar migrant workers in Thailand, especially in Samut Sakhon, since 2009. And our purpose is to protect and promote migrant worker rights, and according to Thai law or according to international standard. So in the Thailand, we also open office since 2010, but we start the project since 2015. So our activity is provide legal aid for migrant workers who face unlawful dismiss or overtime, working overtime, but don't get wage, overtime fees, or when trafficking or accident in workplace, and another problem. So next activity, one activity is, number two activity is education and awareness. So we have library, and we have Thai language training, computer training, and also we are going to the visits the community of migrant and awareness for about the labor rights. And number three activity is data collection. We collect data at the factory or seafood sector or electronic sector or chicken and garment and rubber glove sector. We collect data about the recruitment process and working condition. So when we get the data, we cooperate with our partner from Europe to advocate to the Myanmar and Thai government or international brand for migrant worker rights. And the last thing is the organizing. Our organization is Myanmar-based organization, so we want to organize more worker for our membership. Please, next slide. So the reason for worker becoming employment, it is because of COVID-19 and many business are stopped, and until now they can do their business like as tourist sector, and then military corp and there are many conflicts zones and war. So some kind of business and also MSME and also agriculture section is they can do their operation. And another one is some of foreign investment exit from the Myanmar, and so worker and employment, and also some people they have job, but it is their income is not enough because of many inflation rate is very high for Myanmar. Please, next slide. So previously, Myanmar migrant worker who going to the foreign another country. So for general worker, they are going to Thailand, Malaysia, China, and Singapore for domestic work. And some people semi-skilled or professional is there going to Singapore, Middle East, Japan, and Korea. So, but situation right now, all go anyway. All people want to go anywhere, and whatever job is possible for them. And also they use formal channel and informal channel. Please, next slide. So many people they want job. They want go to the possible country for find job. So many of broker and like as the criminal guy, like as mafia, they set up many things in online, like as fake account, fake page for find job, and they advertise many kinds of job, and some are the branded factory like that. So they advertise, and one worker who find job, they contact to this kind of broker. The potential worker need to transfer money by mobile banking or mobile money pay system like that, and then they close the block. It is happening in social media. On the ground, the fake employment agency, they open office and they fruit money from worker, and then they took money and they run away like that. And some they collect many hundred of worker going to the government training center, look like as sign contract with foreign employer like that, but they collect money and they run away. It is happening in Myanmar, and many thousand of victims are faced, and they lost billion objects. So we have two cases, and each case is more than 200 people. They lost their money. Please, next slide. So, unethical recruitment is happening in Myanmar. It is a long time. So, official agency fee is government approved, not more than 300,000 kyat per one worker. But all it is almost 99% of Myanmar agency is they took money 10 times, more than 10 times from the worker, and they sent to the Thailand. It is happening in Myanmar. It is rookie is from the for Myanmar agency. When they want a demand letter from Thailand, they need to buy demand letter from Thai agency or Thai HR manager like that. It is the current price is Thai baht 50,000 Thai baht to 20,000 Thai baht per person. And also now the demand is demand from Thailand is reduced. But Myanmar people is want to go into the Thailand. So now is the new way for Myanmar worker is like as Myanmar agency and Thai agency. They are they use fake demand. Fake demand means this kind of job is not happen in Thailand, but it is called R demand. R demand means R is the Myanmar words, Myanmar idiom words. It is apla. Apla mean nothing. So demand is demand. So R demand, and they took money from around the 3 million, more than 3 million just from each worker, and they sign employment contract, and they send to Thailand. But when worker arrive at Thailand, they have no job. They have no job like that. It is now happening currently happening in Myanmar and Thailand. Please, next slide.
And Kosente, could you speed up and focus on this one and then the recommendations? So
this is happening also in ethical recruitment standard. Most of seafood or garment or electric or chicken or rubber glove factory, those kind of factory is they need to using ethical recruitment standards since I think if I not misunderstood, it is since 2016. But most of those kind of factory, export factory in Thailand, they not use ethical recruitment, or they says they use, but it is a fake ethical recruitment. So we applied this kind of case since 2016, 2019, and 2021 in the Thailand electronic and seafood factory. So they need to pay back money to worker. So one happening like that, now they develop to bad way. Bad way is the coaching worker. When they when recruiting worker at the Myanmar, and they collect money and they coach to worker, don't dare this information to anybody like that. So when they arrive in Thailand and when we collect data, it is more difficult. It is happening in Thailand. Next, please, next slide. It is one case study is just happening. We found that one factory, the factory they have audit by who but I don't know. But one audit to the worker, some worker they answer they have pay money to Myanmar agency. So factory their factory is when they recruit Myanmar migrant worker, they use Thai agency and Thai agency use Myanmar agency like that. So factory they call the Thai agency to pay back money to the worker, and Thai agency they call this worker to their office and they say they need to follow the order of factory to pay back money to you, but those kind of money they never took from worker, so they were transferred to the bank of worker, but next day worker need to pay back to them at the office. If worker don't do, they were like as report to the police station, and they don't extend visa and work permit of this worker like that. So it is really happening in the fees in the ground. So the audit is good, but we need to follow the whole processing. And if this kind of case happening, we need to, I think we need to audit all of worker like that. Please, next slide. So we went to recommendation to company and recommendation to brand. So auditing and monitoring evaluation is a very important, and we need to monitoring from origin country to destination country. It is seriously, and brand and companies need to strictly monitor their supplier factory for ensure they are really adequate recruitment practice or not. It is our recommendation. Okay, next slide. Thank you. ကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ် ขอบคุณมากครับ
Okay, thank you very much, Hussein Tay. So Manin is our next speaker. She's based in Bangkok, and she's a former colleague of ours in Myanmar Centre for Responsible Business and was very much central to the events that we held with IHRB in May 2019 in Yangon around migrant workers. Manin has been director of Labour Rights Foundation for the last 6 months. Over to you, Nin.
Thank you, Vicky. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank IHRB and MCRB for inviting me to join this webinar. Yeah, I joined LRF since September last year. LRF is a migrant worker-led organization working to protect and promote migrant workers' rights. We are led by the Migrant Worker Solidarity Committee, MWSC, consisting of migrant worker leaders from various sectors in Thailand. We raise awareness about labor rights, labor laws among migrant workers, and we also provide case assistance to workers affected by labor rights violations at their workplaces. We focus on workers organizing to exercise workers' rights to freedom of association and collective bargaining. Today I'll be, next slide please. Today, I'll be highlighting key challenges faced by migrant workers in Thailand relating to recruitment and workplace situations. Before that, I'll briefly explain about what are legal status of migrant workers in Thailand for those who are not familiar with them. And then I'll explain the existing recruitment channels and their key challenges. Since the previous speaker has also explained relating to that, I expect to add some more and reinforce the message. Finally, I'll provide some recommendations to the company. Okay, next slide, please. So migrant workers who arrive in Thailand through MOU system holds PJ passport and overseas worker identification card, OWIC card issued by Myanmar side, and hold a work permit issued by Thai Department of Employment, DOE. Next slide, please. So according to statistics, out of 4 to 5 million migrants estimated to be living and working in Thailand, about 1 to 2.5 million are thought to hold irregular status. So Thai government from time to time issues cabinet resolutions to allow undocumented workers to get registered. These migrant workers who went through this registration system hold work permits issued by DOE and Pink Card. Myanmar side issues Certificate of Identification, CR, and OWIC card. Next slide, please. So the latest cabinet resolution was issued on 5th July 2023, and currently some workers are still going through the visa processing stage. Next slide, please. So now I'll explain main recruitment channel migrant workers have gone through. The first one is through MOU system, as previous speakers explained. Very few companies practice zero-cost system. Meanwhile, many migrant workers have to pay high fee to brokers up to USD 2,000. Under the MOU system, it's been for some months already. Some companies have been practicing the MOU U-turn system, in which workers whose work visa expires after their 4 years of stay and work in Thailand can now renew their work permit by crossing the border and spending a week in Mae South in Thailand and Miauri in Myanmar. However, some companies are still sending these workers back to Myanmar after 4 years. So workers don't want to go back to Myanmar, have to quit their job after their work visa expires, and they lose their jobs and also their legal status. This is one of the issues that workers sought for help from LRF, and we are consulting with relevant companies and encouraging them to practice the MOU U-turn system. Another channel is through fake or problematic MOU system. As the previous speaker said, with the collusion of relevant authorities, the company's HR and unscrupulous agencies, a certain number of workers are added to the real demand. For instance, if the factory really needs 100 workforce on the Myanmar side, the agent might recruit about 200 workers. In such cases, workers have to pay high fees, but when they arrived in Thailand, they find that there is no job available for them. In Myanmar, such MOU is known as RJOD or verbal contract in English. Such kind of practices start to increase since the coup in 2021. Such kind of MOU workers are left stranded in Thailand. In one case, 80 stranded MOU workers were in trouble and asked for help from LRF. LRF helped them by liaison with the relevant labor officers to issue employment change certificates and apply for jobs. Nowadays, they are working at a seafood factory. There are also cases when MOU workers arrive in Thailand, but they have to work in a workplace setting that doesn't meet the previous condition prescribed in their contract, such as working conditions, overtime payment, and bonuses, etc. In such cases, workers need to contact the relevant agencies and ask for the employment change certificate so that they can look for another job. However, in many cases, workers are not aware of their rights and they just, quit the job without having such certificates and lose their legal status from MOU workers to undocumented ones and get in trouble. Another channel is recruiting walk-in workers. As previously mentioned, thousands of undocumented workers have gone through the legal registration system and they have been looking for jobs. As previous speaker mentioned, at some factories, the HR translator and the agency charge high fee to workers. In other cases, workers not only paid high fee to the brokers, but they didn't get the job the broker promised and got in trouble. Very recently, workers who were cheated by the broker came and asked for help from LRF. We asked the broker to come to our office and ask them to return the money back to workers. But there are also cases where brokers were not identifiable or brokers were in collusion with Thai brokers and concerned officials. Next slide, please. Since I've talked about key challenges workers face in the recruitment process, I'll now highlight more on other challenges workers face at the workplace that include exploitative working conditions, that include having to work beyond the quota level set by the buyer within a certain period. For instance, like 400 pieces of certain products are to be produced by 300 workers per hour, following the buyer standard. In reality, like 250 workers have to produce 500 pieces, for instance. So mid-level supervisors and managers are mainly responsible since they want to improve high efficiency with low cost, violating workers' rights to decent working conditions. There are complaints of workers relating to verbal harassment and discriminatory practices of supervisor and their inability to raise their voices since the translator and HR ignore their complaints in favor of their supervisors. So LRF surveyed with Myanmar women migrant workers during 2022 and found out that there are harassment cases at factories. We study at two sectors in seafood and the construction sector. Next slide, please. So due to the time limit, I won't go to the detailed recommendations. You can download the slides later. Just I'll highlight the recommendation on ethical recruitment for walk-in applicants. As we explained, for walk-in workers, they apply for jobs using the brokers and they were cheated. That's why the companies need to have the clear and transparent recruitment systems, including using the approved or licensed labor recruiters and mentions recruitment fee and related costs to avoid deception by third parties. And also, assess human rights risks in recruitment process by conducting meaningful human rights due diligence by engaging with workers and other relevant stakeholders. Next slide, please. And also the recruitment process need to be monitored. Workers need to also participate in these monitoring process, like they can engage in the workers' welfare committees, the WCC set up at the factory, and WCC also need to be functioning, not to just for a show off, and also encourage and provide full support and protection to affected workers who are cheated by the illegal brokers. Okay, next slide, please. So also regarding working conditions, what we find is that we need the, even those audit come and inspect at workplace, if they are scheduled auditing and there is, they can find the real situation. So we recommend ad hoc and announced and surprise inspections by relevant authorities, including buyers and local labor officials, to identify, these exploited practices. And also, factories need to implement occupational health and safety measures, including the provisions of medical attention without unnecessary delays. And also they have to ensure, so management and HR regularly check the validity of workers' passport and visas and make sure they remain legally protected. Next slide, please. So, and finally, it's very important that the companies ensures workers get full access to an effective grievance mechanism, which is transparent and unbiased. And also, companies need to provide ensures workers' representative participates in effective grievance mechanism. So I'll just stop here, I think, for the 10 minutes. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Manin, and a perfect 10 minutes. So our next speaker is Macho Omar Iicho of IHRA, who has been working for 23 years on issues of migrant work, both for the UN and ASEAN, but for the last 8 years for IHRA Institute. Over to you, Macho.
Thank you, Vicky, and thanks for our colleagues from IHRB and MCRB for inviting IHRA Institute to also sharing what we are doing as a network in order to address the issues of workers, the issue faced by workers in the global supply chain. So I would like to start with the statement that we have here. Like if we go to the slide, yep, we believe we can transform the lives of millions of workers in global supply chain through worker voice, partnership, and innovation. So what I'm going to present here is not only the work of the IHRA Institute, but also the network that we have been working together in kind of different corridors in this region. We leverage our labor expertise, unique business intelligence, and position on the ground at the origin and destination country to help the business partners, means global brands and retailers, suppliers, and recruitment agency. We are also data-driven, so we use data and insight to strengthen business system and prevent more exploitative from occurring in the future. The data also support remediation and drive more ethical supply chains. Next slide. So we can see that being based in the country of origin and destination of the workers is vital to understand constantly changing recruitment processes and helping the suppliers understand and responsibly navigate first mile risks in the labor recruitment system. So you can see that it's a have presence in origins and destination country, and we are working with a network of civil society organizations and trade union, which has been our model. So if we go to the next slide. Here are the strategic partners and donors who we like to kind of acknowledge here that help us with our mission to empower workers. So by working with the business and different stakeholders in addressing risks in the global supply chain. Next slide, please. So we have different program of IHRA. I'm not going to go into details. We have inclusive labor monitoring system where we are going beyond audit by having multilingual worker voice channels, having all these data stored in a very kind of secure cloud-based system, case management system. We have ethical recruitment program, and we have IHRA Academy where we provide multilingual training and also education opportunities for different organizations and different stakeholders. Next slide, please. We focus on worker-centered technology and programs that empower and educate workers. And with those technology and engagement with the different stakeholders, we identified and remediate worker abuses. So here in the photo, you can see that worker voice can reach to the migrant as the first mile before even they are making decision or they migrate. So it is being done in collaboration with civil society partners and also with the recruitment agency. And the photos on the right, you can see that we have worker voice roll out in the workplaces and in the community. It's also helped remediation and system change validated by the workers, not by the business. And we are doing this in collaboration with the suppliers and with civil society organization and trade union in the country of destination. We have multiple worker voice channel to have online engagement, especially when talking about here, this very real time. It is very hard to reach out to the workers and very risky to reach out to the workers in job seekers in Myanmar. But of course, because of the online engagement using different social media platforms, we're able to kind of still reaching out to hundreds and hundreds of workers each day. We receive all these calls. And if you go to the next slide, please, you can see that these are the calls, because as I share, we have the database system where we record all this call, and you can see that the number of call has gone up, and then you can see all these numbers of calls have been increased starting in mid-2022, just because the border has opened after COVID, and then the number of calls has increased a lot. And then we also offer our ILM data system to also be used by our partners. So all these worker voice call, the information and the reports and complaints that workers are making are being captured in the database system. So it can be reflected that we are dealing as a network with thousands and thousands of workers. Next slide, please. And here it's a worker voice. You can see that it's a standard of sharing and implementing worker voice, aggregated data from worker voice channel, handled and responded by a network of field-based nonprofit organization to highlight the real-time ongoing experiences and concern of workers through the supply chain, which you can check it out. And the next slide will also show you the public dashboard that we have, where we can look at what are the top 10 labor violation and abuses, which is very much very similar to what our previous presenter and colleagues have shared. You can see that the weak company policies and poor communications has been the top over the 5 years, and also very recently when we look at the last 30 days, and then followed by the verbal abuse and poor treatment by the line supervisors and interpreter, unfair dismissal, physical and serious abuse by the line supervisors. If we go to the next slide, we also have, based on all this worker voice calls that we have received, we also record the top 10 worker reported labor recruitment related violation. So at the top, you can see the number of fees, ethical recruitment related fees detected and intercepted from last year to date, which is the amount of our civil society organizations, and through our worker voice channel, we're able to kind of help the job seekers in order to kind of know their rights, know the right recruitment agency, know how to avoid the scamming, online scammers, and the unethical brokers, where they were able to save this amount of money, which is not ended up in the hands of all these unethical recruiter or unethical brokers. So these are the top 10 worker-related violation. I'm not going to go through details, but you can see that this is what we have heard from our previous colleagues as well. For the next slide, I would like to go through a little bit of, because we have talked about recruitment fees, and then we also have done a number of recruitment fees system assessment. So here on this slide, you can see that with the MOU recruitment from Myanmar to Thailand, such as in the recruitment fees in the seafood sector, on the right side, we can see that this is the workers' paid fees after post ER ethical recruitment policy, where everyone should expect that the number of workers' fees should go down when employers are practicing the employer pay principle. But you can see that especially at the seafood sector, for the first 1 to 2 years, the number is really high because of the desperate for employment opportunity abroad, giving the February 2021, the coup and dear economic and human security concerns. This data is from thousands of workers sharing on what fees they paid across the migration journey. When IHRB does factory-wide randomized representative sample survey in collaborative with the supplier, brands, and recruitment agency. So it is kind of like, it's not the audit style survey. It's more like academic kind of methods. It's being used for the researcher kind of like, or business just picking whoever, but rather we adopt the randomized survey. So the result is fairly representative and experience of different types of workers in the factory. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that the destination side fees post-employer ethical recruitment policy. When we look at here, I would like to highlight the walk-in workers, which is in the yellow dot. You can see that the walk-in workers paid even as high as over 1,000 US dollar, and average is like 200 to 300 US dollar. So the origin side fees in Myanmar were effectively reduced after the enactment of the implementation of employer pay principle. However, the destination side fees employer or their contracted agents charge to the workers for document processing to maintain the legal fees, it's still very high. So what business can do here is the brand and retailers and supplier to clearly communicate and ensure that the cost of document process and extension are not borne by the workers. Timely action to be taken to avoid workers having to return back to Myanmar and paying unnecessary fees and costs, which already mentioned by Ne in her previous slide. So if we go to the next slide, how can the business deal with this situation? How can the business have more visibility of what is happening in the supply chain and implement human rights due diligence starting from the first mile? Of course, worker voice channels. And here I would like to highlight the golden dream, the application where the employer can post a job for the MOU workers, new workers, but the employer can also post a job for the walk-in workers in order to address the risk of workers do not know the cost breakdown, workers paying high amount of money to the corrupted HR officer or the recruitment agencies here in Thailand, or for the brokers. So if the employer is posting the job of the walk-in workers, the workers who already in Thailand can look at those and can get full information where they can avoid paying excessive amount of fees. Everything can be posted and can be clarified and informed to the workers. So I would like to go to the last slide, where you can see that we talked about the previous partners also kind of talked about having to work together, coming together. So starting from this year, we launched the ILM Inclusive Labor Monitoring Action Network. As we partner and work closely with the brands, recruitment agency, and supplier, we connect these businesses to the worker voices and experience of the workers as the network of civil society organization and labor union to create the opportunity to address the root causes of exploitation, as we have presence in both source and destination country. And so it's a collaboration between civil society organization and the business. The collaboration framework covers 3 work areas: worker voice, labor recruitment, and working and living condition. So we really hope that by having bridging collaboration between civil society organization and the business coming together, we'll be able to build human rights due diligence from the ground up through ongoing engagement with the workers and different stakeholders, shifting the focus from reducing risk to the business to the reducing risk for the workers. So I think we need to go beyond audit by having worker voice and engagement with the rights holder throughout the migration process. I will end my presentation here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mature, for almost sticking to time. So we'll move now on to questions, and we've had a variety of excellent questions, some of which have already been answered in writing. I have a couple of questions, I think, for you, Mature, from James Eckford. He was asking for more specifics around abuses within the construction sector, and also asking what was meant by non-MOU to MOU.
Okay, so yeah, of course, I also reply to that questions on like, this is the calls that we have received from our worker voice channels, and I think our partners are also receiving a lot of kind of complaint about like report from the workers in the construction sector. One thing is it's very difficult, even the big construction reputable companies that recruit workers into construction, we have received lots of calls because of the nature of work. And one thing is like the construction, you can move, like kind of it's acceptable to move workers around. You can say that, oh, this site has been closing down and we are going to another workplace. So it is kind of hard. And in terms of the nature of work construction, it's vary from like, even you start from the foundation piece, or even you have to work in the high-rise kind of building. So in terms of understanding the nature of work, it's very hard to inform the workers. So the expectation of the workers versus what workers are being informed about the nature of job, that's where like we receive a lot of kind of issues around that. So I think Kosente and Ning can also kind of add to that as well. Oh, and then MOU to MOU workers. So when workers, I think that's also covered in Ning's presentation, because workers can come through informal channel, right? And then they will be kind of undocumented, but they can apply the pink card, and gradually they can register and also kind of become, they can also return back and become the MOU workers. They can apply, return and get, and then enter into the country, Thailand, with the facilitation of the current employer, and then re-enter to Myanmar as the MOU workers.
And Mature, could you also answer a question that we've got about if workers come on an MOU, can they change employer?
Yeah, there are conditions where they can change the employer. So this is where I think it's become like the trend these days, using that, because there are like conditions where, for example, the employer is exploitative, employer is going bankrupt, or is there any emergency kind of like a reason that's like the job cannot be kind of like has to end, or like there's a kind of exploitation of human trafficking situation. So there are different conditions where employer, like the employee, can change the job, but there's also a condition where the employer also have to issue the cancellation letter, where the job, they can also kind of issue the cancellation letter. That's where it's become very difficult. And then we can see in all the sector, especially in fishing sector as well, because that has been used by the employer and the exploitative agent, where you cannot get this cancellation letter easily. You have to buy for it, you have to pay for it. Otherwise, you cannot apply for another job, or the new employer will not or cannot apply, like cannot recruit you. So it has become the condition, and then that condition being violated by all these kind of current employer. And as Kosente also mentioned, that there are many, not a real employer, but a kind of fake employer who will issue all these work permit. They do not have actual job, but they will just take all these workers under their name, and then they will just work with the brokers here or agent here in issuing the cancellation letter. And then that also costs a lot of money to the workers in order to get another job.
Thank you. Kosente or Nin, have you got any additional comments on abuses in the construction sector? If not, then I'd like to ask this question about what you see as being the role of the Thai government in clamping down on abusive practices, including is the Thai government doing anything around online scamming and fraud? Maybe to Nin first on that one.
So in terms of construction sector, what we find out is mostly related to the confiscation of passports, especially happening in the south where we have one branch office. So workers mostly came and complained and about those cases, and we helped them to get the passports back. Yeah, so it's about the constructions. If anything want to add by Gosinti.
Vicky, what is your question? Sorry.
Sorry, Vicky.
Vicky, you're on mute.
Di salo ye kanana patare pa piesnari shila pa kun ye chou pa hu shi tla era pyo sia la shi la.
In the construction side is mainly is the contract, the subcontract is not pay salary at the right time, or some they not pay, totally not pay like that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good. And then Manin or anybody else, do you have comments on the role of the Thai government in clamping down on abuses, including online abuses, but also workplace abuses? Who wants to go first on that?
It might be a bit sensitive. As far as we are aware so far, there is no effective measures taken by the government. And especially the issue is the low-level police colludes with the Thai brokers who connected to the Myanmar brokers, and it's quite a difficult task for the CCSO like us to confront this kind of consolidation. We encourage government. In fact, we are doing advocacy to the Thai government to clamp down these unscrupulous brokers effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Macho, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that's where the data become, the collective engagement and collective data become very important. So not individual organizations can be targeted by officials or any other entity who have power. So this is where we are building this kind of network where the data from different organizations can speak to, can be used and can speak to all these actors who are like the duty bearers. So of course, instead of all these individuals having their own kind of talking point, using their data from different sources, I think if we collectively have this data being used for advocacy purposes, of course, and then look at the root causes of the issues. But actually, there being kind of, I think, engagement with all these other kind of different social media platform or different kind of government entity dealing with all these kind of online kind of issues. There needs to be the going forward with this kind of activity. I think the brokers are far kind of going faster and kind of ahead of the game, and where else we are still kind of in terms of online scamming, still kind of using the different platform, talking to the government, other relevant government department and organization. I think this is something that we really need to improve, but being informed by the data.
Thank you, Macho. So we have had a couple of questions about Japanese companies. Is there anything that any of you want to say about the role of Japanese buyers sourcing from Thailand and what actions they're taking?
I can share very quickly because like very recently we also have been approached by different Japanese company. So that's why my also kind of reply to like in chat box saying that we can see that we didn't see that in the kind of previous 2 years, 3 years, but very recently we can see that more Japanese company have all these different webinars like showing interest and reaching out to us and other organizations as well. I think that's a good move. So I think we really need to use that momentum, but I can see that it may be slow, but I think it's really going kind of forward. Yeah, and also in Malaysia. So, but I think again, a lot need to be done with the Japan businesses.
So that suggests that the impact of the Japanese supply chain guidance and so on is gradually having an effect in third countries. Manin or Kusente, anything to add on Japanese companies? I'll be going to Japan in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm happy to take any specific messages you want me to take. No? Okay.
Yeah, we have done the recruitment fee survey with the Japanese company in Japan, recruiting workers from different different countries. So we are more than happy to share that data, and we are going to make the data available through our kind of workervoices.org, and that we will be sharing with like anyone when the data will also the information will be launched that cover our recruitment fee system assessment with a Japanese company in Japan, but not in Thailand yet. But we are really hoping that the same kind of like surveys can be done here for the supplier here in Thailand.
Good, thank you. So lots of questions coming in, some of which are being answered online. Some questions around what can be done to report, or what action can social media companies or online payment systems take in terms of fraud and scams. Macho, is that something which you train in your worker training and pre-departure training?
Yes, that's one. And another thing is we have this Golden Dream app where we put the link of the Facebook of the recruitment agency. Of course, when you go and type the recruitment agency name, there are more than 4 or 5 pages. And sometimes the fake pages are more appealing than the real. And you can't even say which one is the real one of the recruitment agency and which one are the fake one. That's why when we go to the Golden Dream, we have all these recruitment agencies listed with their phone numbers, with their Facebook pages. So this is where many workers are checking the Facebook, clicking on the Facebook link there. And then there is the only, like so far, it seems to be the only effective way where workers can avoid being cheated through this different kind of Facebook pages or Facebook accounts. So, and then this is workers are using those accounts, and they also they become smarter, very smart. They call us and say that I clicked that account and it is different from what I've seen on Facebook. And then sometimes we also help calling to the recruitment agency, and we found out that those are the fake accounts. So people stop giving money to all these brokers or the fake brokers.
And have you had any dialogue with Facebook itself, or has LRF or MWRN? You've talked to Facebook about this as well, have you? Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there is also other projects that are also talking to the regional team of the Facebook and addressing this online scamming. I think we need to really kind of like bring what are the challenges of the recruitment agency and the users in having more kind of like moving forward with that more concrete discussion with the social media platforms.
Okay. There's a question about which areas within Thailand have poor working conditions for Burmese, for Myanmar. Manin, do you want to highlight anything you've observed in terms of regions with particular problems?
For the time being, according to our office experience in the South, there are so many issues relating to the passport confiscation and also the wage issue and access to social security, etc. So Semester Cone also has the issue, but it seems like for the time being, according to the data, the South has more.
Just that is the problem. Okay. And then there's a question which I'll put to Koseng Tay, asking his opinion on the mandatory training that Myanmar workers have to attend in order to get their overseas worker identity card. What do you think of that training? Is it useful?
This training held by Myanmar government is, I think, not useful information to migrant workers. It is look like as only advertise about the remittance channel like that. So it is not useful information for
the workers. Okay, thank you. Now
there's
there's a difficult
no investigation for recruitment fees. It is their order to agency, is agency follow or not. No investigation channel. Yes.
Thank you. There was a question that I saw coming up around, are there any restrictions around Myanmar migrant workers marrying and settling down in Myanmar? The question seems to have disappeared now. I'm trying to find it. But I just wondered what's, I can't even find that question. Let's move on. I'll try and find it when I get back. Gunnar, there's a question here around sort of collaboration amongst attendees at this webinar. What are your thoughts on that? What would IHRB's plans be?
That's an interesting question. I saw that. I don't know how we would go about doing that, because a lot of people chosen to be anonymous. If this person is happy to follow up, I think we can contact them if they contact us directly, and see if we can send out invitation if they want to start an initiative from there. Yeah.
And I think we have everybody's registration details, of course. So after this webinar, we will send around the link where we've uploaded the video and the presentation for this. And of course, people are very welcome to get in touch with Gunnar and myself around further questions or interest they have in collaboration. A question for Mature, could you tell us about the cooperation between IHRA and Ulula? Ulula is a worker voice platform. Could you say a bit about that?
Yeah, we have our kind of representative colleagues from Ulula join our global forum, annual global forum. But of course, like not kind of like on ground engagement and collaboration at the moment, but it's kind of we know and they know what each other are doing, and there can be areas that complement each other, but not working kind of very closely. But we, of course, like kind of share the information, and we know what each other are doing to complement each other's work. Yeah.
Thank you. So I found this question. In other destination countries, migrant workers seek destination country passports and settle permanently. Past informal reports from other countries detail employer bans on female migrants marrying local men or getting pregnant. Do you hear of these bans happening in Thailand with Thai employees? Maybe a question for Nin. Has that ever come up in your surveys? Or Mature? We can't hear you, Nin. I'm not sure why.
As far as we are aware, there is no such restrictions. Myanmar women can marry Thai. Thai also can marry Myanmar men as well.
Okay, I'm not sure. You've not heard of this? Okay,
yes.
So, right. Good. Well, I think we're coming to the end. We've got 10 more minutes. Questions are still coming in. There was a question around what window of opportunity does the NUG, the National Unity Government, the opposition government, have in working on this issue? I don't know whether any panelists have any sort of views on that question, or whether you want to answer it, given that there's a slight risk, given the SAC's perspective of the NUG. Any views?
Yeah, I think it's not only NUG, but like anyone who are the kind of duty bearers, or like having the role and responsibility to really kind of protect the rights of the migrant workers or workers in general. I think, of course, to be informed by what is happening on the ground, not on the ad hoc visit, but also like having kind of good collaboration with different actors, how kind of like being informed what is happening, like being informed by the data, but at the same time, being updated on the policies and regulations, and also not just only kind of like having a practical solution as much as possible for the migrant workers. And there can be different channels that the kind of influence can influence the different policies makers or different actors or even the brands and retailers. So I would say that there are different ways. It doesn't have to be visible and kind of like open, but there can be different channels. But when people are in the kind of responsible for this, but to be informed and have all these be informed by the data and being on top of what is happening, in terms of the problem faced by the migrant workers. So connect with those people who are really on the ground, but at the same time, like, yeah, working more proactively and reaching out to people who are supporting them.
Yeah, I think I would have answered in the same way. I think data-based, policy-based, regulation-based inputs are always useful, bearing in mind, though, that obviously both the NUG and Myanmar people more widely are seeking to be in Thailand, and that's perhaps the most important thing that the Thai government can do, is to facilitate their ability to stay in these difficult times. Are there any final comments from our panelists? I'm sorry we haven't answered all of the questions, but there were very many, and I hope we covered most of them. Koseng Tay, any last comments from you?
Yes, about the recommendation, brands and company need to follow about the recruiting processing, start up the urgent country, and also investigation also need to pre-departure training at the urgent country. If we protect like that, there are no happen problem to the destination country. So it is very important, and we also doing like that, cooperation with Thai major seafood factory since 2016. Yes.
So understanding origin country conditions is very important for any company's human rights due diligence, which is, of course, exactly why we've had this webinar. Manin, any final comments from you?
According to our experience, one thing I would like to highlight regarding the improving the working conditions of migrant workers is I think companies should also train their HR and their management, so that, you know, the management listen to the workers' voices, and also check, you know, regularly the workers' legal status. You know, in many cases, the thing is that HR ignore the status, and then workers' visa expires, and workers, you know, have no legal. No work visa valid, and then they got in troubles, and it's very difficult when that's happened to solve. So that's why HR need to take the proactive actions, and always need to be trained in, you know, effective communication, non-discriminations, and labor rights standards. Thank you.
Thank you. So HR mustn't leave it too late to work with the worker to keep them legal. Macho, final thoughts from you?
Yes, the final note is to go beyond audit, informed by the worker voice, but having like for how the business can have visibility of what is happening in their supply chain, just working with the civil society organization who are working very closely with the workers day to day. So not relying on the audit, which is one-time ad hoc investigation, and we know how business can get away with getting good audit reports but they cannot get away with having a safeguarded worker voice, trusted worker voice, to get the real information from the workers. I think in terms of employer pay principle or ethical recruitment or legal recruitment, I think focus on the walk-in workers, because many times I think the brands and retailers are focusing more on the MOU workers, and many of the suppliers are trying to get away with kind of, okay, when I recruit the walk-in workers, it's like the policies and procedures are not super clear to the supplier. But knowing that we have all these massive number of migrant workers here, and there will be more hiring of the walk-in workers, which is the appetite of the Thai business that we have heard. And so our big question is, how can we make sure that the recruitment of the walk-in workers are getting attention, and ethical recruitment is being practiced and monitored very carefully for the recruitment of the walk-in workers, and using worker voice and the technology that we are offering, and the partnership that everyone is having here, in order to make sure that the walk-in workers recruitment is not being ignored, but to have more attention, especially these days. Thanks.
Okay, so focus on walk-in workers and listen to worker voice if you're a brand seeking to check up on your supply chain. Back to you, Gunnar, for some final thoughts.
Thanks, Vicky, and thanks to all our panelists, Kosente, Ninwood Ye, and Machel, for your time and sharing with us your insights and your work within the current situation. And thanks to everyone who shared your comments and questions. The Q&A chat box has been very busy, and I think we've tried to answer as many as possible. The summary of today's discussion and the recording of this webinar will be available online, as well as slides and links for downloads afterwards, which has been a popular request. We will aim to include recommendations for companies which employ Myanmar workers, and we will also consider further events that will focus on destination countries for Myanmar migrant workers beyond Thailand. And to end with, if we can move to the next slide. Before we end, I'd like to share a few other announcements from IHRB. This month, IHRB launched our new research, the gender review of the implementation guidance for the Dhaka principles, and a research report to better understand the experience of women migrant workers during recruitment. This report and guidance sets out key challenges women migrant workers face, the gaps in protection provided in international standards and national laws, and also outlines measures that businesses can apply in their own operations. The links in the chat box, I believe, by my colleague. And the next slide, please, Carmen. And next month in April, IHRB and Work Better Innovations will hold a one-day forum in Taipei to discuss a range of human rights concerns in the supply chains of international brands in Taiwan. This in-person event is free to attend, and we welcome civil society, companies sourcing from Taiwan and their suppliers to attend. Further information and links in the chat box. And the final slide, this year's Global Forum for Responsible Recruitment will once again be a hybrid event, online and in person, between the 25th to the 26th of July in London and online. You can find further updates on our website. That's it from me.
June, I think. Is that right? 25th, 26th June?
Yes, 26th.
Yes,
right, 25th to 26th of June in London. And it will also be online for those who can't be there in London, of course. And yeah, that's it from us. And thank you once again for joining this webinar. And we will upload this recording online soon. And I think those who are registered will receive the link to the recording, as well as the slides and other links. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye for now. Thank you.